Hello, everyone. This is Rich, and this is another Isker Church recorded conversation with a member of the church, catching up on all that's going on in our church and in the city. And this time I'm with Iain. Hello there, Iain.
Hello there.
Great to have you with us.
Okay.
At this time, we're talking street pastors and police, and you're involved in serving both those areas of our city. So perhaps we'll start with street pastors, and you could just give us an update as chair of Exeter Street Pastors, what's going on for that organisation and the work in this strange new world?
Right. So street pastors have been going for 10 years, as we know, and my role at the moment is being a street pastor itself, but also the chair of trustees. With the COVID, what we've found is that we've not been on the street since about the middle of March, and we still aren't deployed at the moment. So currently what we're doing is we are just investigating with our volunteers as to who would be happy about going back onto the streets. Bearing in mind, though, that only about 50% of the pubs are actually open at the moment and are closing sort of early-ish, around about midnight. And of course, the nightclubs aren't up and running as per se, though there is still a footfall in the city centre. So at the moment, what we're doing is we're just going canvassing our volunteers, saying, are you willing to volunteer? But with the proviso, we need a duty of care to our volunteers, and that's what we're very careful about. And so, we'll be wearing masks and gloves, and there'll be a different protocol. But it's a challenge at the moment, because the whole aspect, the fundamental aspect of street pastors is actually hands-on, picking people up and dealing with them. And so we've got to really then think of this duty of care for our volunteers and let them make the decision as to say whether they're happy or not. So we will see if we do deploy, depending on the numbers. Freshers Week at the university is starting on the 12th of September, and we were looking really to aim to be deployable, if we are going to do it, around about that time. So we're going to give ourselves another weekend. We've been continually monitoring the situation with COVID and the cases and whatever. So we're just very mindful of what's going on around us. And so we will see how that pans out. But we've started making the inroads and the questions as to whether or not we can deploy or not.
And I guess you are talking with other people in the city council and with other kind of stakeholders about what's appropriate.
Yes. I mean, one of the roles I've got is actually sort of the liaison between myself, the council, the police, and the licensing trade. So I've got a number of forums that involve these people, and I've been talking to the environmental people in the council as to what's their foreseeing in the future coming down the line as far as opening up is concerned. I've been talking to the police as to say, hey, how busy is it? And I'll be going out just myself just to go around the streets about 9:30, just to gauge on a Saturday night what it's like and how busy it is. So we are talking with others, trying to get their feel for it. I think the police have said that it's been reasonable, but I think what we've seen is that once people get a drink in them, the whole aspect of social distancing goes to pot. They just lose the idea. But this is where we've got just to be a little bit more careful of how we deal with people, and just think of new protocols or way of working.
Sure, well, that's good. Well, it's good that there may be a chance to return as long as it's safe.
Yeah, indeed.
Good street pastors update. I guess what people in the church in particular may not all know so well is that you're also involved with the police in a different role. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes. In November, I became the police chaplain for Exeter. And that role has been quite interesting. Unfortunately, I was there, and then it's comes under the auspices of Citizens for Policing, and they pulled all the volunteers out of the police in March because of COVID, and it's only about 3 weeks ago that I've actually managed to get back into the stations. But give you a bit of background, police chaplaincy is under the umbrella of Police Chaplaincy UK for England and Wales, and there are 500 chaplains under England and Wales under 43 forces. And here in Devon and Cornwall Police, we've got about 32 chaplains throughout Devon and Cornwall. And out of those 43 forces, there are only 9 full-time paid chaplains. And we are very fortunate in D&C, Devon and Cornwall, that we've actually got a full-time paid chaplain, which is really great. My role, the aim is to actually get a chaplain for every station. And I've got 3 buildings in Exeter. I've got the Civic Centre, which is the neighbourhood team, which actually includes the PCSOs. We've got the old Heavy Tree station, where people are still in there, though that is actually being moved out this autumn, into the new high-tech, state-of-the-art station up at Middlemore. Okay. And so I've got that one as well. And I'm starting to look at the NPAS, which is the helicopter and flying police as well. So they're based up in the airport. But my role is fundamentally to just befriend the police and the staff and the families. So my role is very much like street pastoring, but it's less of a proactive role, because you go into the station and you just walk around with biscuits and goodies and whatever, and just have a chat with them, and you just let them offload. And really, the intensity and the engagement is really on their side, as to how much they want to talk to me, how busy they are, and so I've just got to let it build. And the more and more I go in, I just build more and more of that relationship with these guys and girls who are doing a great job. And it's really good. I enjoy it, and there's such a diversity, because you're dealing with the neighbourhood team, you're dealing with the guys in response you see in the streets and the cars, you're dealing with CID, fraud, scene of crime guys who are looking after all those horrible incidents, and things like that. So there's such a mixture of people. The other thing that we do supply, and certainly in Devon and Cornwall, is child death support. Okay. So when there's a police is involved in child death, a chaplain will actually phone every officer who's been involved in that incident, just to touch base with them, to see that they're okay, and give them the opportunity to chat things through if they want. So that's a new facility that we're doing. So it takes a lot of time. You've got to go in and just wander around and, as I say, loiter with intent, and let them chat and have a good social time. And I quite enjoy it, because there's quite a lot of different characters. Learning their names, remembering them, that's the main issue I've got. So but I'll get there.
That's fantastic. So you may notice that Iain is now in a different chair, still wearing the same clothes, but in a different chair with a different background. Slight technical hitches, but we're back rolling again. So Iain, you're talking about connecting with people. For the record, I do know from our own local PCSO, Rich Shelton, that you give out very good biscuits and even donuts, I've heard on occasion.
Indeed.
You take care of people well. So obviously it's really strange times for people at the moment. So can you tell us a bit about what's going on for the police and what the challenges are for the police at this time?
Yes, I think in talking about how they actually went about COVID, I think obviously with the lockdown, the city centre was obviously very quiet, and business wasn't as usual. But of course, during lockdown, they saw an increase in domestic violence incidents, and probably a bit more of some continuing drug related incidents. and of course, now that lockdown's finished and there's been more relaxed and easing of access into the town, etc., then they've said to me, yes, it's sort of back to business as usual. But I think the challenge for the police is that with the government and with all those different rules and regulations and the easing coming in, weekly slots or whatever, they found it very difficult as to know the rules and regulations of which they've had to follow. And the sort of the legal aspect and what they can enforce and what they can't, and because it's not always been clear, and we've seen that in the media as well over those months, that they've had a very difficult job trying to encourage people to adhere to the recommendations, but not really being allowed to, or not being in a position to be able to enforce it. And so that's been an ongoing struggle, I think, for them. In a way, I think I'd be right in saying that. Mm-hmm. But also the challenges that they had, abuse and these guys. I mean, I always, I look at these officers and staff and whatever, and they've got the uniforms on and they've got their stab vests on and all the paraphernalia, but they're actually people underneath it, mm-hmm. And they are people just like you and I, who've got families and they're going home to families at night, and who have got, emotions and personalities and whatever, and all these things that happen to them, just can't always just bounce off, though they're trained to be resilient. But when it's an ongoing thing like that, these people do need a listening ear and being able to, air things, and that's what the role is, just to, if they want to talk or want, just have a chat about anything, then that's fine, just to befriend them. And it's certainly it's a multi-faith chaplaincy, so it's throughout the country, it's not only Christians, but for people just to be able to talk.
That's amazing. So it's great that you can be there and look after people who all have their own stories and are going around dealing with other people's challenges and issues, but of course have their own lives, their own experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
One thing I've noticed, being with a church and seeing the work that Andy's doing with One for Exeter, joining with other leaders, is that there seems a pretty decent relationship between the police and the churches across Exeter right now. From my point of view, really good levels of communication, and seems like there's a decent relationship there. So able to tell us kind of how the police are working with the churches at the moment and what you're seeing there?
Yeah. Well, of course, you see, over the last 10 years with the street pastors, I've certainly been involved with the police in setting it up and all that, and on ongoing relationships with them in meetings and the like. And so you build up some relationships with some of the inspectors and superintendents and people on the ground. And so that sort of carried on into the chaplaincy. We've had, and through that, we've had a number of contacts, as you say, Andy's One Exeter, and we've been able to get updates from them. And certainly, there's the Christian Police Association, and so we've got a number of Christians, policemen and women in the force, and part of that as well. So we've also, and like the Deputy Chief Constable, Paul Netherton, he's the president of the CPA, the Christian Police Association, and he's very vocal and open about his faith as well, which is great, and been a great supporter of the chaplaincy as well. Mm. And I think it shows that because we've got a full-time chaplain, it shows that the Chief Constable and the Crime Commissioner value the work that the chaplaincy does across Devon and Cornwall, because they've actually put money in to actually support it. And so they've got an engagement there. And over the lockdown and over these past few months where we've not been able to get into the stations, we've been hearing that a number of the stations are saying, where's the chaplains? We need them back. And what are they doing? Why can't they come back? And of course, we've been tied by the governance of not allowing us in there at the moment. So I think we are appreciated. It doesn't always seem that way, but you just pray that you are making, you're impacting some people's lives in a very small way, but just befriending them. But I think, going forward, we've got a lot of engagement with the police, coming to the different forums, with the churches now. And I think it's so encouraging. And it's like with the council, Rich, is that, we've been praying for a long time that there's a single point of contact for the council and for the police and for the emergency service to actually engage with the church in Exeter. And this is now coming to the fore. And they're now asking us, can you help us in this area? Can you help us in that area? And which is great, because they can now see the value that the church brings, and what we can do for the city, and working in partnership. And that's the word, partnership, is the key word in all that we're doing here, between all those different agencies. And I think it can only grow as we move forward. It's really quite exciting, quite encouraging.
That's fantastic. It's a real good testimony of partnership between the church, city council, the police, communication, and a kind of respect for one another, and to work together. As we draw to a close, perhaps some cues for people watching about what they can pray for and what they can support, either obviously encouraging everyone to pray for you, having heard more about your role, but also what else they can be praying for in the city.
Yes, I think, thinking obviously, for the street pastors, I would just ask in the immediate, just pray that we'll have wisdom to do the right thing. And that they'll, and if we do go out, and some of us go out, then we'll just be wise as serpents, it says, in how we deal with people. And because, as I said before, that we want the duty of care for volunteers. So let's just be wise and listening, and be aware of what we're doing. As far as the police are concerned, I would just pray for those men and women, and the staff. There's a whole lot of staff behind the scenes, people who are taking the 999 calls and whatever, that they're actually dealing with aggravation all the time. Whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol related, and whatever, and to do with the restrictions and whatever. But they're doing a great job, and these, as I said earlier, these are just normal people who are wearing a uniform, but actually can be hurt emotionally, as well as physically. And we just want to pray for your PCSO that is associated around your area. These guys, these community service officers, do a great job. They've got a great rapport with their area, their community, and they are part of the police unit. And so they are really a key people in the front line. And let's pray for those guys. And we just want to pray. I just pray for the welfare of the city, that as we come through this pandemic, and as we're still in this, then actually, for the prosperity of the city, for the churches to be coming together more and more as it's doing, how we can actually engage with these blue light services who are doing a great job for us, and just really backing them up with prayer. And that's a great thing to do.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. Iain, thank you for sharing more of your story with the church, letting us know what to pray for, and for telling us more about what's going on in our city.
Pleasure.
We can't all be out there to see it. So thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thanks, Rich.